Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fuck, Marry, Kill, the reproductive justice podcast from Sister Song, where we fuck the unfuckable, marry the unmarryable, and kill the unkillable. My name is Simran, and today we are talking about abortion funds with my lovely friend Camille Adair from the Carolina Abortion Fund.
Hi.
Welcome, Camille. This is a wonderful excuse to hang out. So
I love an excuse to hang out. This is working. We are working. We're getting paid for this.
Camille, when is the last time you played Fuck, Marry, Kill?
Does TikTok count?
TikTok counts.
Yesterday.
Oh my God. That's so, I feel like everyone else I talk to is like, I haven't played it in years, but.
The filters, anytime a filter pops up, I'm on it. I'm on it immediately.
Okay.
It's one of my faves.
Okay. Well, then I'm excited to hear your answer. So, fuck, marry, kill, coat hanger imagery, pussy hats, and the pull-out method.
Man. I would marry the pull-out method.
Bold.
I would fuck the coat hanger imagery. I would kill the pink pussy hats.
That's fair. Okay, why are we marrying the pull-out method?
Because I'm already a mom. I don't care if we pull out or not. I'm good. We could do it. We cannot do it. I have access to resources. I work at the abortion fund. We're pulling out or we're not pulling out in this house.
That's a good point. Yeah, even if the pull-out method doesn't work, you'll figure it out.
I do not care what we're working with. I don't care if you pre-came or what happened. I don't care.
Honestly, working in reproductive justice, I do feel like I care less about like I'm way more lax about birth control because I'm like, what's gonna happen? I'll figure it out.
I'm also old. So
you are not that old.
I'm old enough where I do not care if you pulled out or not.
Okay, there you go. Married to the pull-out method.
Married to the pull-out method. I'll fuck the coat hanger imagery because, is it dated? Is it a pale image of what our wisdom and what our resources really looked like? Absolutely. But did people lose their lives? Did people actually have to make do with what they had? And in some cases that wasn't enough. Yeah, all of that did really happen. And I love our history. I love what we come from. We don't use that imagery out of respect. We don't use that imagery because it's shameful. And then, the pink pussy hat imagery, I can't find any redeeming factors.
Yeah, no, that one's just rough.
I don't. It's not my favorite.
Can you give a 101 TLDR version of coat hanger imagery? What is it? Where does it come from? Why is it not?
We see a lot of coat hanger, back alley, handsmaid tale type imagery when people want to talk about where we've been and where we don't want to be going, and how this level of policing and surveillance on our bodies is going to take us back to back alley abortions and stuff like that. When at least in my case, I come from heritage where we knew exactly what to do when something like that came up, no matter what something like that is, whether it's you're about to have a baby or you don't want to have that baby. Even as slaves, we were using things such as the cotton to catch sperm. We all came from people who knew better, and it has always been the state that told us that we don't know anything. So the coat hanger imagery doesn't represent really where we came from when we're talking about abortions. And also, it's just not the norm. That is not something that people were doing on a regular basis. That is a representation of the worst case scenario. And it doesn't represent abortion at all. It doesn't represent abortion. It doesn't honor those names. It misses the point. Same thing for Handmaid's Tale. Oh, we're going to end up in this kind of reality. Babes, did your people not come from that reality? Because some people's people already did that. We already know that. So, a lot of catch-all phrases oftentimes will miss because you're not going to be able to name the collective in an image. You've never been able to do it before. Never going to be able to do it now. No Canva, no AI is going to fix it. Abortion just needs its whole word said.
Yeah. It's provocative, and so it plays a political role, but it is not a nuanced take or look at the history of abortion or abortion now, because I feel like that is the idea is, if you regulate abortion, then people are going to go back to coat hangers. When in reality, we have abortion pills and they are wildly safe.
Yeah, because like people's idea of what a safe abortion is limited to being inside a clinic inside the hands of a provider, and that is so privileged. Like, we don't all feel safe inside a clinic. Those doctors do not have all of our safe best interests in mind. And even some countries, some other people, not my heritage specifically, we learned this from our Latin American continent partners. They taught us in their organizing work, they do not seek to say abortion is healthcare. They seek to say abortion is a community right. It's a birthright. It's something that is a part of their lineage work, but it is not in the hands of the government, because they won't handle it for you. They will not take care of you. There is a huge business to being born or being evacuated from a body, and the clinic is not always the safest place. For some people, you're safest with your grandma, you're safest with your sister, you're safest with the auntie who's been doing abortions for years. Like, it doesn't mean we're going back to back alleys every time.
Right. It can mean that we're going back to community, going back to our people who have been doing, as long as birth has existed, as long as pregnancy has existed, abortion has existed. It's not new. It's not like woke, liberal, whatever. Like, it is part of the birthing process. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the idea also of people of color and our ancestors having birthed and had abortions and done birth control through really terrifying times. Because we had this recent conversation. Lori and I were at a conference, and I just name dropped Lori, like people know who Lori is. Lori is the producer of the show and is also the education coordinator at Sister Song. But we were at this conference and we were having a conversation about climate change and birthing during a time of climate crisis. And so some white folks were expressing a feeling of dread of, oh, I don't feel like I should or want to be birthing children into a dying world, into a crisis like this, which is real. But I thought something that was really interesting that the Black and brown people in the room were saying was that in reality, we have been birthing through crisis forever. This is just your first crisis. like this feels new. Like, oh my God, how can I bring my child into this scary world? We've been bringing our children into scary worlds, and we do the best that we can, and we find so much joy within it.
It's also so interesting because, like, I feel like during, like, the fall of Roe, we were stumbling across people coming across their first major civil rights rollback before. Mm-hmm. And, like, organizers were tired, activists were tired, they didn't want to go march, they didn't feel like that was impactful or effective. And it was just like, dang, like, we still have to go outside. You know, we still have to fight. And they were like, well, I mean, like, we literally just lost Roe today, okay? And we already had a vigil. We had a vigil, like, yesterday. We can't have vigils all week. We have to go outside. We have to march. We have to go write. We have to go organize. How many first crises can they have? I think the collective amnesia is what's really, really knocking them down. The state is so effective at being able to convince people, like, everything's fine. That was crazy what we just saw, right? Yep, sorry about that. Cleaned up, Truman Show style. Don't worry about it. Get back to work.
Collective amnesia is such a good way to put it, because, yeah, our memories are so short when it comes to these kinds of, like, governmental shifts and these governmental decisions that really, really fuck with our lives. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, they keep us so complicit into the current state because it's so hard to just survive. You know, putting food on the table, getting health care takes up all your time and energy. You don't have time to think about the other things going on in the larger history and all of that. Like, it's so hard to have the time and energy to really look at the patterns in our history,
right,
when you're trying to keep your kids in school.
Oh my God, it's too soon. My kid's in school.
As we speak.
But that's the goal of the state. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be that busy, that impacted, that stretched for time, that desperate for just, like, one quiet coffee before we get to work.
Yeah. So you brought up the, like, Roe v. Wade being overturned and the first crisis. So I'm curious to know how the role of an abortion fund has shifted since Roe v. Wade was overturned, if it has at all.
I would not say the role of an abortion fund shifted at all during the fall of Roe. I would say the landscape shifted dramatically. And as we lost more safe places for people to go and lost more states around us, the South is such a desert at this point. The Florida 6-week ban just passed in 2024, but we've been dealing with the repercussions of losing Roe for like, what is it, 2-3 years now? For a little bit there, North Carolina was considered a quote unquote safe haven, but like we resisted that language with every fiber of our being because we knew like if the Republicans, if the folks who were pushing for legislation to look different here caught wind of that kind of rhetoric, like we wouldn't have it for very long. And the same was said for Virginia, for Florida, all the places where we were quote unquote sending people, quote unquote telling people we're safe places are still not. There is no safety. There is no semblance of safety where there are rights being eradicated before your eyes. There is no such thing as safe. It is just a matter of when and where, like how and when. But for us, especially since an abortion fund was created in response to like Title X and the Hyde Amendment, the role of an abortion fund did not change at all for us. The level of callers we had changed. The way that we get to organize with our partners changed. Things we get to say, in some cases, changed. The way we organize and like allow callers to get their funding has changed. We've tried to abolish pretty much every stopgap that might exist within our abortion fund. Mostly just because, you know, we use abortion funds used to have things called funding floors. Like you need to be, depending on the fund you were at, like 9 weeks or 6 weeks or 7 weeks, wherever you were. But post-Roe, I can't think of an abortion fund with a funding floor anymore. There's so many ways that abortion funds do support now. We have practical support. So some people are doing lodging support or travel support. We ourselves do have drivers, and we help folks with lodging. And of course, we help with folks who are getting abortions inside the clinic. We don't get to like fund self-managed abortion, but we know that there are other places in other states that are able to do that kind of work. So we're always uplifting all of our siblings in this movement. But I would say pretty standardly, our work never changed, like not in the whole 13 years that abortion funds have been here and longer.
That's amazing context to really put into perspective that Roe v. Wade was not the be-all, end-all. Like, abortion was already hard to get, especially in the South, especially in rural areas, especially for vulnerable people. Like, Roe v. Wade being overturned is a bad thing, and also didn't change the world for that many people who are already struggling.
For those of us who are not going through our first crises, we know like once you get any ounce of freedom, you have to fight for the rest of your life to hold that little inch of freedom. Maybe in your fighting, you might get a little bit more freedom, but like every source of liberation requires an outpost for safety. Someone must be sleeping, and then someone must be guarding while the other person is sleeping, that little piece of liberation. And that was Roe. As soon as we got Roe, and you know, this happened before our birth. So for what I understand, not even 10 years later, they had Title X and Hyde. So they've been fighting pretty much the entire time to maintain Roe. But our tagline before I even started working here was the South has been post-Roe. And that was because no one could access abortion, even if it is legal. Okay, it's legal. Find an abortion clinic then. That's the way the South operated. How are you going to have an abortion clinic if we've decided that their rooms are too small? How are you going to have an abortion clinic? We've decided that they need to be signed up with a hospital and the hospital's not answering the phone. How are you going to get an abortion if the freaking nearest clinic is like in the state next door?
Right. Banning abortion is not the only way to stop people from having abortions.
No. You can make it harder for people to use Ubers. I mean, Florida does have that surge pricing for Ubers right now. It's funny. It's only funny in hindsight. The things we've seen in this level of imperialism from America has been astounding.
So can you explain what Title X and the Hyde Amendment are? Because you brought it up a couple times.
Yeah, so Title X was originally a good thing. It was created so that low-income folks were able to access reproductive health care in general. But then over time, there was a gag rule created, I believe, by the Trump administration so that folks who were getting access to that funding, they were not able to talk about abortion or access abortion through that funding. And then the Hyde Amendment came, I think, before Title X or Title 10, but that to say its whole deal was we can't use state funding for abortions.
Right. And I mean, I'm thinking about like how many people, low income people, are on Medicaid. Like that is just not, so Medicaid cannot be used for abortion ever.
Well, at that point when we had those two laws, and so, or when those two laws were impacting us, and that is why abortion funds were created, was because we were responding to the stopgaps that existed for free and legal abortions, the access to abortions that we were supposed to have through Roe and Dobbs. But now we have things like the 6-week ban, or in South Carolina here, it's a 12 and 10-week ban, or our medication abortion ban has changed. So I don't believe it's like 12 weeks anymore. But much different times, much worse laws.
Right. I was going to say, it was already bad, and then it got so much worse. Like I remember a few years ago, like really being like, the Hyde Amendment is the worst thing ever. I have so many opinions on why the Hyde Amendment sucks. And then it sucks worse now. It's gotten worse.
I remember my mom being like, wow, Mio, like I cannot believe my child does not have abortion access, and I had abortion access your whole life. Like all of my reproductive justice decisions I've been able to make, you do not have that same access.
Yeah. It's scary to see a country move backwards like that, and to see your children have their rights taken away that you had the option to have. So yeah, and something really crazy about the Hyde Amendment is that abortion is the only thing that's not allowed to get federal funding.
Right, and this is the case for abortion in so many different places as well. Like in North Carolina, you are not able to schedule your follow-ups through services such as telehealth or telemedicine, but consider your mental health stuff, your therapist, your checkups, your prenatal appointments you can do virtually sometimes. It's really nice to be able to have like that, I'm not feeling my best, or I would rather be at home. Do you need to hook me up to things, or can we talk? Like, do I have to be there? And we know, even though now we have this third appointment, that's not a medically necessary appointment. That is definitely something that could be done over the phone if they would consider that. But for abortion, they like to make sure that it has the most scrutiny possible of allowed in a law. And if they've not created it, then they'll make it soon.
Right, exactly. Like they want to take it out of the health perspective and into the politics perspective. Like abortion is so exceptionalized.
And I would say one other thing that shifted post-Roe as a result of all this is the way that like already people who were dealing with the impacts of all of these systems joining forces already were having trouble with so much as getting their WIC, having a baby make it to earth safely, the babies that they do want to have. So with abortion being scrutinized in this way, so much of our reproductive justice champions were focused on abortion, and look at what March of Dimes graded all of our hospitals in North Carolina. Like, we are on a reproductive justice level so far backwards, and with the state joining voices with all the different systems, our doctors are tied up, our midwives are tied up, they're not allowed in hospitals, our doulas are not allowed in hospitals still, or unless they've created like doula companies within the hospital settings. We're in a weird place reproductive justice wise.
Yeah, and being able to acknowledge that abortion is just one of the many pieces of reproductive justice. Like, abortion is in its own way a type of birth, and so focusing on birth justice, on maternal health, on baby health, like that is all reproductive justice, and yet abortion becomes this like such a separate thing, like this separate thing that we all need to be worrying about, versus seeing it as one piece of a large puzzle that allows us to live our best reproductive and sexual health lives.
I love to think of it, I love that you called it a type of birth. I feel like I have always thought of it as just like a transition, and regardless, we know as like womb bearing people, like you might see them all. You might catch them all. It might be some real Pokemon things in your life coming up. And the last thing you want is to like have to make a decision, easy or hard. And someone's like, oh, not only can I not talk about this, but if I give you any information, I could go to jail. Like, that's where we are.
Yeah, it's already a vulnerable thing. Like whether or not abortion is the best decision of your life, nobody's claiming that it's not a decision. Like it's like something big that's happening in your life, and it can feel a really wide variety of ways. Like I'm an abortion doula, and I remember hearing from people saying that they felt like a bad feminist because they were upset about their abortion and they were embarrassed to tell their friends that they were really upset about it. And like being able to have the full range of emotions that comes up from abortion, be that good, bad, ugly, I just feel like it's such a underdeveloped piece of leftist ideology. I really feel like just feel like the right has been able to co-opt emotion. Like they're the side for babies, they're the side for moms, and we're the side of like, oh no, it's a zygote, it's a fetus, it's not a baby.
Oh my God, yes.
Like we're the side of science, and of course that's beneficial. Like
it's so helpful. Like it's information that is useful to our callers and to our clients, but like in reality, like exactly like you're saying, my experience with Carolina Abortion Fund was me calling to get support so I could abort my baby Milo, and I didn't do it. And that's how I knew Carolina Abortion Fund.
Wow, I had no idea. What an amazing story.
And it took, I didn't talk about my story. I told my story to staff, and they were like, oh, we're so happy you kept him. Like, we love him. But I lost friends over that decision. So many people made me feel like a bad leftist. And when we start learning about abortion storytelling and stuff, when we come into the work, I was like, oh, I wish I could tell like how I came across this resource. But like, I would hate for my experience to be looked at as like right Republican propaganda, blah, blah, blah. But I have found like my story represents that of someone who has the full range of options. Mm-hmm. And I went through all my options and I made my decision, and I was able to make a decision, which is not something we all even get to do. So like, it's a story and it counts.
It counts. It counts. No, that's so powerful to think about. Like to be able to have called the abortion fund and been like, if I want to do this, I know that I can, but to also just move forward and have your beautiful baby boy, like that is a really special thing. And I think that, yeah, we fail to look at the nuances of the many stories that come around abortion. Like it's not all, everyone doesn't have the same story of it.
Measurable outcomes, guys. We want measurable outcomes for everybody, and that is up to everybody.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what exactly, like when you called the abortion fund, what were you hoping for? What exactly do abortion funds do? Who and what do they fund?
Okay, so abortion funds specifically fund, at least our abortion fund specifically funds a procedure inside a clinic. So you have to have an appointment with an indie clinic or a Planned Parenthood somewhere within the North and South Carolina area, because most abortion funds are working with a service delivery area, a service area that they are able to actually get funding for and fund. So for us, that's all 17 clinics between North and South Carolina. And that's anybody who is seeking that sort of care. We work collaboratively with not just abortion funds who, in the event that you might be approaching the gestational limit, we might need to help you get somewhere else, or vice versa. So we work with other abortion funds, but we also work with other like accompanying networks and like practical support networks, like Elevated Access or I thought of an org who is not working with us anymore. I miss them. And that's another thing, about this work. It's just like so much of us have had to adjust so dramatically to the work. And as a result, we're seeing some of our favorites have to like get their rest, like see us in the next season. But we work with a lot of different like types and styles of advocates in this work to get the work done. Many hands make the work go quick.
Yeah, and like everyone has a place in the movement too. Like, yeah, I just feel like there's so much that needs to be done. Like if you can be the greatest organizer in the world, or you can be someone who makes a bomb sandwich, and like people need to eat. Like
people gotta eat.
There is a place for everyone in the movement.
Oh, for sure. And our clinic escorts, like we love the clinic escorts so much. Like I love seeing a rainbow vest. If I see a rainbow vest out in public, I feel safe immediately every time. They're always at the protest. They're always willing to be the marshals. Like you can't do this work without the clinic defenders.
You really can't. And yeah, I really think that's like some of the best people ever. The people like to choose to spend your volunteer time doing that. Me and my siblings were clinic escorts in high school. We were like 16, 15, 14, sitting outside the clinic, doing the thing.
I think clinic defending just has like one of those like core memories for every like repro organizer. Like it's just a fun place to start. You're usually just mad anyway.
Right.
So
Right. Like, what am I going to do? Sit around, be at home and be mad?
I'm not going to sit here and like engage with antis. I'm going to go ahead and do something.
Right. Right. I know, because it's so easy to get caught up in those conversations with quote unquote pro-lifers. Like, and you're not
Forced birthers.
And like, most of the time you're not going to change their mind. I think that that's something I really had to learn. Like when I was younger and full of rage, like we all were, I was like, I'm going to change everyone's mind. I'm going to be so rational and thoughtful and persuasive. But at the end of the day, like, you probably are not going to change that person's mind. So what can you actually tangibly do to make the world a better place?
And like clinic defending, because the revolution will not be televised. At least you get to go be outside and make it happen for a little bit, just for a little moment. You got someone from point A to point B without getting hit in the face with a sign.
Or a Bible. There was always a lot of Bible throwing.
At my local clinics over here in the Carolinas, we have a lot of parades. They love to have a good like walk of life through the clinic areas. Very frustrating to see like microphones and speakers and stuff. They're like, they got big old pickup trucks full of speakers screaming at clinic passerbyers, kids, adults, whoever's over there, you're getting screamed at. It's wild.
Yeah, I remember the clinic near my house had a similar thing, and there was always people who brought their kids there and would have the kids yell, "Mommy, please don't kill me. Daddy, don't kill me," at the people walking into the clinic. And I was like, that is actually like
Horrifying.
a new low. Like that is
Wow.
vile. And I remember they used to call the so it was like they only did abortions on Tuesdays or something. And so that was when the abortion doctor came in, and they called him the butcher. I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, that's kind of badass.
Like it's a very funny nickname, but it's also so scary because like these are people who are going through our U.S. school system, becoming what we say is like a good person, and then having to go out to do the job that they got their U.S. proof of being a good person for, and are getting called the butcher. Like Abortion Provider Day is because they murdered a abortion provider just for doing his job, just for being a good citizen. That kind of language really horrifies me because that is language that is used to exterminate us, to like get rid of us. And I hate that so much.
It's domestic terrorism, the way that the right-wing people treat abortion providers and people who have any connection to abortion, like blowing up abortion clinics. That is terrorism.
And I do want to be clear, at least from the Carolina Abortion Fund standpoint, we think fascism goes both ways. We think it likes to sit in the left and the right and the middle. So although we've talked a little bit or a good little bit about the right wing, don't think liberals are doing us better.
Yeah,
Don't even walk away from this thinking we think that.
Ideology is a circle. That's a fact. Yes. So what are the barriers that people are facing when they need to get an abortion, and how do abortion funds help them navigate those barriers?
Abortion funds have the divine privilege of just being able to be like, here's our wallet. So when people are coming up against costs, whether that's cost of travel, cost of the procedure, cost of childcare, cost of lodging, that is where we get to show up and show out. So we get to help you navigate finding a hotel nearby to where your clinic is. We get to help you figure out if it's best for you to take gas or if it's better for you to get an Uber. We get to help you navigate childcare. We get to help find the best clinic if you haven't found one yet, depending on what you got going on. And it also feels like we're limited in that way because like outside of like doula support and like advocacy, that's really the extent of our resources, and it feels like it's not enough in a place where, for example, people are facing clinic shortages, and like I hate to use the term shortages because we know it's a big old fabricated lie, but it's just our reality with this level of legislation and oppression. So for like our South Carolina folks, they've got 3 clinics to choose from, and we only work with 2. As a result, people are facing those same cost issues. They're facing gas issues. They're facing burden, like clinic burden, because only having 2 or 3 clinics means you are, in South Carolina's case, talking to 50 counties and you are serving all of them in 3 clinics. Like, that is insane burden. And so there's just so many different things. And then, of course, you got to consider things like language access. As of the fall of Roe, we learned that our Latin American and Hispanic siblings are people who are not being able to access abortion care the most right now, which sucks to see. But we know that's because with this clinic shortage, with the language and access, with the level of like anti-immigration, anti-brown, like rhetoric we're seeing in general, people are just not feeling safe. And at least, even if you did stop first with your abortion fund before you went to the clinic, which with CAF, don't do that. But even if you did, the abortion fund would be able to tell you, here's what your real first stop is, and then come back to us. We're really happy to just be able to sit in the middle ground with people because, wow.
No, it's so necessary. It's amazing work. And are you able to fund everyone who calls?
No, we are not able to fund everyone who calls. We are only open technically for about 2 weeks out of the month. And that's based off of us doing our best budgeting,
Absolutely.
Our best guess at this will keep our line open. And then we have to close so that we can be open again next month. If people were out here sustaining abortion funds, and that's what we should be considering. If you hate the sound of an abortion fund closing 2 weeks into the month like we do, consider becoming a sustainer. Because your $5 is great, but an abortion costs about $365 to $495. Additionally, people have to get childcare, people have to get lodging, people are traveling. There's a lot to consider, and $5 is gas. It's some gas. It's just not you have to leave the state gas.
It's your clinic's kind of nearby gas.
Right. You took some taxes off. And we love that. We love the people who can take the taxes off. We need more people who want to take the cost of the abortion fund too.
That perfectly leads me into my next question, which was how can folks support their local abortion fund?
Oh yeah. Go ahead and get back into what I said. We need sustainers more than anything. It is amazing having such a rich and robust community where I like to think of it as all of us passing the same $5 around. Like, we're not rich people by any means, but we do have people in the organizing world, in the philanthropy world, who do have that kind of access, who do have that kind of pull, who can dream of seeing abortion funds open longer, people getting their abortions funded. And I'm talking to you. If that's you, we need you. Uncle Abortion Fund needs you.
Think about it. Every time you get a text from the ACLU, from Planned Parenthood, from Joe Biden asking you for money, take the money you might have spent on that and send it to your abortion fund.
Please and thank you. We want to be open for 3 weeks.
The amount of times I've been kind of down bad and I'm like, ooh, I got a text. Yay, somebody texted me and it's fucking Joe Biden. And he's like, please, you are helping me. I need $3. No, you don't.
Are you willing to chip in just $2?
No, I was so excited that somebody texted me. Dick. Amazing. Okay, so to wrap us up, what I want to know is what makes an abortion fund more than reproductive rights, but a reproductive justice initiative? And for those who maybe are not super clear on what the difference between reproductive rights and reproductive justice is, go back and listen to our first episode with Monica Simpson, who is the executive director of Sister Song, and we really dive into that topic of what is reproductive justice, where did it come from, and why is it different? Why does it matter? What gap did it fill?
I can't wait to go listen to that episode. And it's actually so funny that you would ask me, of all people in the movement, this question when I have been secretly campaigning for Sister Song to come gatekeep the term reproductive justice. I actually personally would really love if Sister Song, Monica, any of y'all listening, can y'all consider auditing reproductive justice, quote unquote, organizations and talking about in full the fact that we cannot keep allowing people to say they're a reproductive justice organization and have one Black person in comms working there. In fact, that should not be allowed. In my opinion, what makes an org a reproductive justice org is, number one, that they are a Black org, or an org servicing specifically the Black community. So that means there's Black people in multiple levels in that org. No disrespect, but I am Black. I don't think orgs where you only see one Black person, or you see a flagship Black person or a tokenized Black person, counts as being a reproductive justice org. Even if they are your favorite radical reproductive advocate, reproductive justice was created so Black people and brown people were thriving, not just coexisting together, not just like making it on what we are calling standard $60,000 an hour, like, or a year. Like, that is not reproductive justice. Orgs with policies that are like choking out the movement, like that's not reproductive justice. So first, Black and brown people in your org are thriving. Black and brown people are happy. They are like getting to contribute in a meaningful way to the organization. Then they are probably an org who's working with women and children, queers, pregnant folks, people who don't want to be pregnant. They obviously know not just like the tenets of reproductive justice, but also like the tenets as in the people who live inside the movement of reproductive justice. I think those are some of the most important parts of reproductive justice, because even now, like, there's no infallible organization. So like, we definitely have to be thinking about reproductive justice as a growing, breathing entity and a movement, not just a moment in time, not just when we got sick and tired of being sick and tired at the Reproductive Justice Convention. Like, way more than just Loretta Ross, who is still here with us today. I want her to audit. I want audits.
No, I hear that. I really do.
But yeah, it's a living, breathing thing. And I think Black and brown people know it when they see it. For all the folks, however, in the movement who are looking, be comfortable with reproductive rights. Like, be comfortable with that framework, and be comfortable with seeking access to our rights, because rights framework is valuable. But reproductive justice is not something we see a lot of, because it's choked out. We're still fighting for it. And there are only a few orgs being able to fight for that.
Right, like reproductive justice is made by Black and brown people for Black and brown people.
Very FUBU.
Very, very. And so, like, you can't, like if you're for marginalized people, like, you can't have an organization that is made of white women and is doing legal rights and then calling themselves reproductive justice. Like, own reproductive rights. That can be what you do.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. I feel like there's, I was doing something with some governmental agencies that had started their, like, reproductive justice division. I was kind of like, like, I know that you're saying that because you care, but it's not yours. It's not yours to have. It's not yours to be cultivating. And frankly, it was created for marginalized and vulnerable people. And so if you are thinking that you can accurately depict those needs, it's not true. And like, you're part of the government. Like, it's just not.
Devoured. No crumbs. I don't have a single note to add. I don't want to see your reproductive justice benefit concert and you yourself, the organizer, are white and the whole gang is white and every band is white. That is not a party for reproductive justice. That is a party for reproductive health access or reproductive rights, or like so many different things. But reproductive justice is actually very specific, and we really got to get back to talking about that. We got to get that back on the table before we lose that too.
Right, because that's so true. When it gets diluted like that, that is the risk that we lose it. Like, and so many terms have had that happen. Like, I'm thinking about like an article that I read during the last election that was like, Elizabeth Warren is our most intersectional candidate. What the fuck does that mean?
And also, like, when we come into the work, we're taught about who our local abortion champions are. And I'm like, well, what constitutes being a reproductive justice advocate? Like, are you anti-police? Are you anti-CPS? Are you, like, pro-reunification of families? Like, what makes you a champion for reproductive rights? Because you don't think doulas should not be in hospitals? Like, I need to know what the levels are. Right. I have yet to see an intersectional champion inside office. Mm-hmm. That's just us. I'm happy to be a 501(c)(3) because we're not even supposed to see.
Right. yeah, like not believing in forced birth is not enough because there's so many things are connected to this. Like reproductive justice is bigger than that. And so being able to be a reproductive justice advocate means that you do hate cops, means that you do like see CPS as something that takes children away from their families. Like there is something bigger here, and not being able to acknowledge those systems or being complicit in them and then calling it reproductive justice is really hard to watch. And yeah, I recently had lunch with Loretta Ross. It was a delight. And I got to teach the Loretta J. Ross what the word crunchy means. We were in Amherst, Massachusetts, and I was talking about the white people being crunchy, and she was like, "What is crunchy?" I said, "Loretta, you have taught me so much in this life. Let me teach you something."
Oh my God, I'm crying on the inside.
And I taught her, and I was kind of like, "You're never going to use that word. Like you didn't need to know that. You could have gone your whole life without ever knowing what a crunchy white person was." Like
the fact that you got to teach Loretta Ross the word crunchy, and if I ever meet her, she'll know what the word crunchy is when she sees me.
Throw it into conversation, see if it works.
Like me hiding from an invisible camera.
I know the joy of podcasts is that you can wear whatever the fuck you want. Like normally I'm way hotter than this. This is not my day.
Just so we're clear, always hot.
Thank you.
Very hot. Couldn't be hotter today.
Okay. You want to get out of here? Fuck this podcast. Let's go.
We're getting married.
We're getting married. That's it. Well, thank you so much, Camille, for being here. This was amazing. I love you. And getting to hear all your brilliance is always such a joy. So we're going to go get lunch.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.